Hi, Bill. Hi, Molly.
Hello.
Hello.
Hope you all are doing okay today.
Yes, thank you.
Good, good. We'll give it maybe just a few minutes, just for other folks to hop in. If you need to get settled, I don't know if you're hopping from another meeting, so feel free to take a few minutes as well yourself. Maybe we'll give it to 4 or 5 after. And screen actually. Can you both see this okay? Just
Yeah.
testing it out. Okay. Awesome. And Molly, I'm actually for the both of you, where did you register with the link to join today by chance? I just
I
wanted
believe
to.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. All right.
I think so too. I'm pretty sure.
All right. I'll make a note to everyone just in case that they didn't to just put their emails in the chat if they don't mind. So that way following the call I can make sure to kind of like send a follow-up email. Although Joe, I think I have yours because we've been communicating. So but just to kind of let everyone know.
Yeah, thank you for all your super quick and swift and helpful support so far.
Yeah, no problem. And I wanted to actually speaking to you now, just while we're waiting for a few folks to join, because I know you emailed, yeah, some great questions. Just I wanted to make sure to emphasize with the question about like additional languages. That's really kind of how we came to be with the 5 languages. I mentioned that already have translations in. So Congolese, Swahili, Dari, Pashto, Spanish, and French was really due it really largely in fact that the accepted like submissions that and partners we worked with this past few months, they were the ones to express those languages in need. And then we went ahead and had those materials translated and cultural validated. So I just wanted to make sure to emphasize that even if you don't see a language there, for example, Ukrainian, that's why we ask for folks to like share what languages they anticipate, so then we can make sure that if we don't have those languages already, to explore that and make sure to support partners with that.
Cool. So if it's not one of those 5 languages, when we're making our budgets, should we think about budget factoring that into the budget, or is that something that,
Mm.
if you decide you're going to fund us and we tell you which languages, you would take the lead on that?
That's a good question. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to because we took the lead on this last cohort of translations. Um, so if that's yeah, if that's helpful to answer your question, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
cool. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, Aya. Nice to see you and others. I see others kind of came through. Welcome. We'll be mindful of everyone's time because I know we're only allotted for 30 minutes. I think I'll get started. But just as a quick housekeeping item, if you haven't registered through the registration link, for example, like to join us today if you didn't put in your information to sign up for this call, if you can please make sure to put your email in the chat so that way I can make sure to follow up with everyone kind of with the slides here, just a recap of everything. So again, if you wouldn't mind putting your email in the chat, that would be wonderful, just to make sure I don't forget anyone in case you didn't kind of formally register on our registration link. And with that being said, I will get us started. So, for those of you who I don't know, my name is Lena Zara. I'm a program officer for CARE within the IRC. So, CARE is the Center for Adjustment, Resilience, and Recovery. Um, I will provide like a quick overview of CARE, just in out of respect. I don't want to make assumptions that folks know or do not know kind of what care entails and the work we do. And then me specifically, I kind of help navigate kind of support with our different partners, especially with our pilot intervention. So a lot of communications through care is more often than not through me. So happy and of course, yeah, very happy to answer any questions that you might have today or after the call as well. I will make sure that if you don't have the care email as well, that you have that too. So before we get into attachment vitamins, just again to write a very quick overview of care. So we are a 5-year project funded by the National Child Traumatic Stress Network and then funded by SAMHSA, so the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Agency. And so our goal is to ensure that forcibly displaced families, so refugee, asylum seeking, and other forcibly displaced children, youth, and families receive culturally responsive, evidence-based, and trauma-focused treatments and service interventions to ultimately work with providers to prevent the long-term negative impacts of childhood traumatic stress. So you can think of care almost like as a bridge between mental health providers and then agencies that specialize in serving forcibly displaced populations. Making sure again there's kind of that bridge so that there is that sort of information exchange, addressing information and system gaps, promoting knowledge exchange between intervention experts, and then of course those who are directly working with families. And so a lot of the work that we also do, if you've gotten a chance to look at our website, is a lot of training, consultations, technical assistance support. So also in the lens of kind of culturally accessible evidence-based interventions with various community partners. And the one that we're here to discuss today being attachment vitamins. All right, and so attachment vitamins, which we'll now go into, we work really closely with other NCTSN sites and attachment vitamins, in particular with the University of California, San Francisco, with their early trauma treatment network. So for those who are not as familiar with vitamins, attachment vitamins is an evidence-based, strengths-based intervention, again, developed by UCSF. And you can consider it as a early prevention program based on child-parent psychotherapy. It's especially key for highly burdened families that wouldn't be able to participate in really intensive interventions. As I mentioned, this is an evidence-based intervention and also relationship-based treatment for young children exposed to trauma. So ultimately, you can think of the goal of attachment vitamins is to raise caregiver awareness of the effects of cumulative stress and trauma, and then being able to strengthen the child and caregiver relationship. So this is not a parenting skills group, we like to emphasize, but really here to support parents and caregivers to learn about childhood development. What are the impacts that they might see related in part from stress and trauma, being able to reflect on the child's experiences and being able to connect that with what they're seeing and the possible meanings of their behaviors and experiences, and then being able to promote secure attachment and safe socialization practices. So providing instruction on attachment and encouraging parents and caregivers to essentially build on what they might already know, integrating knowledge into their parenting to again really promote strong and positive relationships. And we do get asked a lot, why is it called attachment vitamins and not to confuse with the actual tablets that one might take, but we kind of word it in a way to hopefully make that connection as to why it's called attachment vitamins. And essentially, you can think of this as like attachment vitamins or supplements that you take to stay physically healthy. Attachment vitamins, the intervention, the program helps parents and children have healthy relationships. So it's like an extra boost of attachment for parents of young children who've experienced very stressful or highly traumatic experiences. And to emphasize that attachment is necessary for healthy development and growth, especially in those early years. So wanting to at least provide that context as well, as you might be thinking, why is it called attachment vitamins? This is 10 sessions of curriculum content. We usually say about 10 to 12 weeks, depending also if you do, for example, 1 week at a time, just to add additional time of kind of support from UCSF and care, setting things up. So that's why we like to add in that kind of like buffer time, if you will. Oftentimes groups have done this either virtually or in person as well, kind of depending on what works best for your agency. And to really think through the activities that are part of the curriculum content is having, again, that ultimate goal and reflections to increase caregivers' confidence in the ability to care for their child, particularly in the context of chronic stress and or trauma, through different interactive activities and reflections. One being promoting attachment, second being caregiver confidence, and then three, warmth towards the child. You kind of have to think of three kind of key and core areas to emphasize. And then what we're looking for, and that you might have seen if you've had a chance to look at our submission guidelines, essentially we are looking for agencies and partners that would be recruiting parents and or caregivers that have at least one child under the age of 6. Who are supporting US based families who have experienced forced displacement. We usually say residing in the US for no more than 5 years, but however, to really emphasize that immigration status will not limit or facilitate participation. So you would be ideally able to recruit in the communities that you plan to serve and have a demonstrated history of providing drug services to forcibly displaced populations. And when we say forcibly displaced, this could include, but not limit to asylum seekers, individuals without permanent status, refugees, asylees, survivors of human trafficking. Again, immigration status is not an eligibility criteria. We are definitely interested in communities who may face barriers in accessing support, such as not speaking English or not having culturally relevant services available. So to emphasize supporting culturally and linguistically diverse families based in the US. And then you as an entity and organization also being based in the US, public entities, nonprofit organizations, or government agencies, to list a few. And then, as I mentioned already, having that history of managing similar relevant projects that would be able to also manage project activities and funds, and then having that localized collaboration and coordination. And then what to expect. So typically in the cohorts, agencies and our partners typically recruit at least initially about 8 to 10 for each implementation, with noting that over time we might lose participants due to various life circumstances and things that happen. So that's why we do ask and anticipate at least initially that 8 to 10 participant recruitment. And then additionally, what you would expect to be doing again would be recording and storing informed consent for those that would like to be part of the intervention. Our partners would be utilizing quantitative and qualitative measurement and evaluation measures. These include kind of pre and post intervention administration of tools such as the Kessler Psychological Distress Scale, the tool to measuring parenting self-efficacy or TOPSY, and then the parental reflective questioning functionnaire, PRFQ. And for TOPSY and PRFQ, we also don't typically do the full measurement. We use partial sections of the TOPSY and then a page of the PRFQ. And then there's a short qualitative feedback survey as well at the end of the group implementation as well. And as additionally, we have different materials on our end to help support you. But on your end, you would be working to distributing and collecting any necessary participant materials. So that could be books, welcome kits, handouts, etc. So I don't know if there was a few of you on the beginning of the call, but we provide culturally and linguistically accessible and validated materials to help support your implementation. So these would be handouts, slides, a glossary of terms, just to name a few things that we like to be able to support partners with, of course. And these are reviewed when I say validated. These have been reviewed by bicultural, bilingual community members to ensure that translations are accessible, appropriate, and relevant, especially in the context of mental health and trauma terminology. And so I mentioned some of the materials. So these would be kind of the glossary, key handouts, slides, and then actually as well as the M&E instruments being translated into the respective languages as well. And also the end survey, the qualitative end survey that we asked for you to work with participants on. And then additionally, in terms of kind of staff from your end, we asked partners to please identify 2 staff members who would be trained attachment vitamins facilitators. Ideally, one is an agency staff member and maybe one is a community member. A question that does come up is, do you have to have someone with a mental health background? And the answer is you do not. However, it's ideal that at least one licensed mental health clinician would be kind of present, or someone who's skilled in leading support groups or similar services, just because this is a trauma-informed curriculum. Some things might come up with an emphasis on self-reflection. So, in case urgent things do come up, or, having someone that can support kind of de-escalation, crises and protocols, have those in place. We do, that's why we do kind of advise at least having someone accessible if it isn't one of the facilitators themselves. And then when we say someone from the community, it's ideal to have someone who is trusted in the community, bicultural, bilingual, for ease and comfort of the participants who might be speaking another language. The facilitators go through a 20-hour remote training, didactic facilitator training over 4 half days. And so for this cohort, this would be either end of May or in June of this year, 2023. And then they would go on to facilitate at least that one cohort of the 8 to 10 caregivers between June and September of 2023. What we do provide on our end, along with UCSF, our weekly consultation calls. So that's again that 10 to 12 weeks to be able to support any program implementation And these consultation calls are required. They're brief. They're usually about 30 minutes or less. And then generally speaking, CARE and UCSF will provide technical assistance regarding recruitment, consent, participant retention, monitoring and evaluation of the curriculum content, and program facilitation. So that support, of course, does not end at that initial training. We're kind of there to support throughout, but also give you, yeah, the space you need as well. But just to say, you of course have access to CARE and UCSF at any time that you would need that. In addition to the consultation calls. And then last but not least, in terms of the funding award, so individual awards would be up to 20,000 US dollars each, and adhering to that budget for up to 4 months. That would include staff time, facilitation, participant project survey incentives. So for example, the M&E surveys that are conducted, the end surveys. So we typically say 30 or what is expected, I should say, through our grant is $30 per participant per data collection. So 60 total. And then that could also include maybe program materials. Let's say you're printing out the handouts and or books or welcome kits. So it's to include what we kind of mentioned in terms of what those costs are. And we do have a breakdown. And if you haven't looked at the submission guidelines, we have like a suggested kind of breakdown of the budget that you could potentially submit when you submit the answers to the questions. And yeah, so I'll make sure to, if you haven't already, make sure to link the proposal guidelines. Again, it gives very in-depth overview of what to expect, frequently asked questions, the suggested kind of budget that you would be proposing, and that breakdown, even a work plan, so you can understand like month by month what you would be expected to do. Essentially everything I talked through today as well. And then as a reminder, our deadline is the 29th at 5 p.m. Pacific. You would be submitting the answers to the question and the budget breakdown to care@rescue.org. And then also if other questions come up, you would be we would be more than happy to answer any questions through email as well. And then I'll make sure to email this out to the group. But basically all the different kind of reference points I talked through, we have the links on this PowerPoint. So whether it's our website, our attachment vitamins announcement page where you saw the proposal guidelines, an overview of attachment vitamins. I can also link that in the chat here too once I exit out of the screen. Just to make sure if you need that additional context that you have that as well. And actually, with that being said, I know we only have a few minutes, so I'll stop sharing my screen and make sure if the last few minutes that we have to answer any questions that you all have, and then I'll put some of those links I mentioned in the chat in case anyone needs that refresher. Yeah, does anyone have any initial thoughts? I know that was pretty fast, but wanted to make sure to get through everything and also wanting to be respectful and mindful of everyone's time. So I see, sorry, a few questions. These are really good questions. So I would have to double check on the CEU credits for the participation in the training. So I'll jot that down. I would say for the potential opportunities for future funding, I know that unfortunately that's not a guarantee. However, partnering with us we would be wanting to find ways to support kind of having that kind of continued, right, um, facilitation of attachment vitamins groups. We definitely encourage that. So those are definitely things that like we can talk through and explore. Um, if you would, for example, if you were accepted and then wanting to carry this out as well beyond the 4 months. And then Molly, to your question, um, can our staff train other staff like a train the trainer model? That's a good question. I do believe, well, for example, once your facilitators go through the training, they are trained attachment vitamins facilitators. Now, if they need to go through, for example, a formal process, I believe that they can be trained through the kind of certified attachment vitamins trainers, but I will also double check with that as well and get back to you. And then will the training take place before the grant begins or after? Um, so essentially, to answer your question, Jill, the training technically, at least from my understanding, kind of signifies the beginning of that grant being started. But it's not taking into account like we have that additional time set, for example, for you to have those 10 to 12 weeks of implementation. And if need be, if there needs to be kind of time beyond that, we can always talk through what that looks like. If there can be an no cost extension, but we haven't, yeah, we haven't had that issue kind of come about. So you should be fine. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I can get a more formal response in terms of kind of that grant starting and ending date. Um, will you accept our federally approved indirect cost? I'm pretty sure, Molly, that we are um, capped at that 8%. But if you have more details about what your federally approved indirect rate is, please do send that to me and I can make sure to flag that for our team as well. And then Regina, if we apply planning for specific staff now, can we swap a staff member out before the training? Oh yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. It's more so that, for example, when you go through that cohort of participants, that they need to have gone through the training in order to be a facilitator, if that makes sense. But if you, for example, if you send in a proposal and you say it's um, ex staff member, but it ends up being another staff member that actually goes through the training, I don't see any issues with that.
Can I ask, we asked this over email, but I think that one of the biggest value adds for this for our team would be we've got 6 different parents from different refugee communities who all run parent groups in the communities. We would love to get all of them trained in this curriculum so that even if it's not as part of this cohort, they could still be, or, as part of this project, they could still be going out to offer this curriculum in the community. So could we have all of them there in that training, even if they weren't necessarily going to be implementing a group within this project?
I see. Do you have an idea of that number you were thinking, Jill?
So I've got 6 women on my team from 6 different languages, 6 different countries, and we'd love them all eventually to be able to offer this programming. So we would like to do 1 or 2 cohorts as part of this project this summer, but then, still get everybody on the team trained so that when anybody else is ready or, maybe in September,
I
a couple
see.
more of them could start a couple more cohorts, but all of us could get trained together.
I see what you mean. Let me flag that because from my understanding, ideally those are with that join us are part of the pilot in some way.
Mhm.
So I'd have to see if it would be more if they could join, but like you said, it's another sort of kind of hope for that like additional, like they could go on to do that the other groups. Yeah, because my initial thinking is that they have to be part of the pilot to join this this training, but I'll double check for you. So I'll want to make sure.
Okay. Because otherwise, I guess, do you know what sort of training Attachment Vitamins offers? Like, is there like, maybe that's something I should just look into externally, if there's like a fee-based training in Attachment Vitamins that we could otherwise pay for, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know what you mean because I do know that facilitators who have been fully trained, they can go on to continue to use the curriculum. Um, and so, yeah, you're thinking, but wanting to at least make sure that group, the additional group individuals that you would like to be trained,
Mm-hmm.
like how they can at least have access to that training if they don't join this initial training.
Right. Yeah, we can't run 6 groups this summer,
Right,
but
right.
you know what I mean? We still would love that value.
Right, that makes sense. Um, let me that's a really good question. Let me double check because I don't want to say anything incorrectly.
Thank you.
And get back to you as soon as possible.
Can you tell me more about the community member as a requirement? We were thinking we would train 2 staff members, and the staff members speak the language that they would be providing the groups
Oh.
in. So would that meet the requirement?
Yeah, I think so. I think the idea with I mean, ideally, it would be great to have a member of the community, but in that respect, not to make any assumptions, like you said, there's a potentially a staff member who does speak the language. At least having some that support for participants so that cultural, if not that cultural, but like at least that linguistic, right, accessibility for an ease for participants. So that language accessibility, not to say that we haven't had groups who, for example, staff members have used interpreters, but just to say that it is suggested. So
But if the 2 staff members do already represent the community and speak the language, then that makes them up. Yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Any other remaining questions? I know we're over time. Happy to stay on another minute or two. But yeah, want to also be mindful and respectful of everyone's time. And I saw someone mention in the chat. I dropped the care email. So you have that. You can always yeah, feel free to reach out at any time. Um, Oh, and I see, Jill,
Yeah, there,
did
yeah,
you say,
sorry.
your question about referencing program sectors?
Yeah, there's just like in one of the tables, it asks for project sectors and it didn't, we just weren't sure what to put there. I
Let
think
me,
it's,
let me double check, because now I'm blanking, I'm like, project sectors.
yeah, I think it's just like in that kind of initial table of, Nikki, if you're on here, you might be able to reference more quickly which section.
Yes, it's in that first table. It says program sectors or I think it's project sectors. And I wasn't completely sure what that meant.
In the, like the application, like the table for the, application
Yeah.
format?
Mhm.
The very first table that's in there, there's a, it would be easy for us to throw in something like, this is going to be in our resettlement department. So that like, and in our community education department, but we thought you might need something more specific.
Yeah, let me show my screen really quick. I want to make sure. So you're saying in this table, correct?
The
The
no,
first fillable table, it's the table that where it asks for name and budget amount.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about the
template.
template.
Yeah, so it says project name, project goal, target geographic areas, project sectors. Yeah. So that fourth option right there.
Oh, okay. Um, I don't want to, let me double check what, yeah, I don't want to say the wrong thing. So let me reference, because I think, I don't want to say the wrong thing. So project sector. So
Us either.
geographic areas, obviously where you're located, right? Maybe it doesn't have to be when they say the project name, kind of it's the that can also change over time, right? But if I were to go to quickly reference,
Yeah, because we can certainly make up project sectors that we feel like it falls into, but if there are specific ones we
so
keep picking from.
just kind of the nature of your entity. So like a nonprofit, community organization, like what, yeah, sorry, that's not very clear. And even I was like confused by that. I was like, am I overthinking this? So yeah, it's more of just kind of, are you, yeah, no, government organization, are you a nonprofit? So not necessarily kind of anything beyond that, if that's helpful.
Great,
Super.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you, yeah, even if you were to say, for example, yeah, like you were saying, a specific like department, yeah, you wouldn't need to. I mean, looking at examples in the past, like it could be like focus on child health, for example, but other organizations just put kind of the nature and type of organization they are affiliated with.